Francesca Bianchi perfumes. If you've been in the fragrance game for a while now, you probably have heard of this brand. But at 108 euros per 30 ml, it's quite the steep price Francesca is asking for her work. Even the Discovery set costs 70 something euros. So, is it worth it? That's the question we're answering today. Right off the bat, I must say that almost all of Francesca's perfumes have a very characteristic, sweet, narcotic, waxy, heavy, almost nauseatingly animalic smell to them, which is a good thing. I love it when perfumers have their own signature accords, even if they're not my favorite. And in this case, it provides the fragrance with a dirty, edgy feel that also happens to smell really expensive. And the fact that they come in an extrait de parfum concentration, around 25%, definitely adds to the feel. We're going into an alphabetical order, and the first one is Angel's Dust. Green, spicy, phenolic with sweet, waxy undertones. Has a leather note there, which definitely adds to the edginess. In a few minutes after the first spray, it reveals a bit of rose and an irisy, bitter powderiness. Something similar to Etat Libre d'Oranges Putains de Palace. After around 5 hours on me, it turns into a floral, sour vanilla that lasts until the next day and gradually becomes less strong, and it turns into just plain old vanilla on me. In my opinion, a great, edgy, feminine scent. Doesn't last for too long, but still could be worn as a signature scent. Oh, by the way, I'm not featuring Unspoken Musk and Libertine Neroli in this list. I would have loved to, but I got what I got. The next one is a leather monster, the Black Knight. Patchouli, oily woods, bitter, sour, with some woodiness. Again, has a similar phenolic vibe to the previous one, and at times I get some faint fruity undertones with even fainter floral scents. Has a similar feel to Histoire de Parfum 1740 with the sour leatheriness, and Nazamaro's Black Afghano with the bitter, oily woods. On me it projects for around 3 hours with a bitter, smoky, oily, woody smell, and around the 7-hour mark it turns into a sweet, leathery, weak skin scent. Honestly, if I had to choose between Black Afghano and this, I would probably go with this one. The Black Knight, it smells more interesting to me and it's less expensive. It does last quite a bit less than Black Afghano though, so trade-offs. The dark side opens up with beautiful coniferous ambery fur, but within minutes turns into a waxy, heavy, dense, sour sweet, leathery, almost sickly mixture. I can discern some labdanum here, as well as some hay-like honey notes, maybe some tobacco absolute. There's also a spicy green tinge here, very characteristic to Francesca. The main descriptors of this fragrance to me personally are deep and dense. Projects on me for around 5 hours, at which point it becomes a dry, waxy, sour vanilla and benzoin with low to medium projection. If you like the smell of beeswax, this one is for you. Etruscan Water is green, spicy watercress, undoubtedly masculine lavender with phenolic, leathery notes, some woody notes, and I can definitely also pick up some waxiness there as well. Within a couple of hours, it obviously becomes less complicated and spicy, and I get a more oily, woody sweetness in this scent. Projects on me for around 4 hours and overall lasts around 14 hours as a slightly green, sweet, ambery skin scent. This to me smells rather masculine. If you want a green, spicy, ambery, slightly sweet scent with a characteristic Francesca smell, you could go with this one for sure. Lost in Heaven opens up sweet, herbal and floral with a good dose of patchouli and maybe a bit of musk. Actually, it reminds me of some kind of a candy. Within 10 minutes the greenness seems to fade and I'm left with a patchouli-esque, leathery, almost almondy sweet scent. And around the 2-hour mark is when I'd say it becomes a skin scent on me. It turns into a rather weak, simple, ambery vanilla with a bit of animalic, maybe indolic facets. This is an interesting gourmand fragrance and I really like it. But if you're looking for longevity, this is probably not the place where you should look for it. Could be a great evening scent though. I would say it's more feminine rather than masculine, but it's never that simple with Francesca's stuff, is it? Francesca Bianchi, The Lover's Tale. I absolutely love it. The initial spray brings out a very nice rubbery tire note. Mechanical, phenolic, almost paint-like, maybe with some gasoline aspects. In my opinion, it's a great, heavy-duty, niche upgrade on Dior's Fahrenheit. Don't get me wrong though, here we have an almost photorealistic representation of rubber, instead of the faint association that we get in Fahrenheit due to the violet note. It quickly reveals more complexity though. I get some barnyard with a comfy, warm sweetness and a definite sour kick to it. At the 2-hour mark, the barnyard fades away and we're left with a nice, leathery sweetness. Actually, it kind of reminds me of Gucci Guilty Absolute, except it lasts for way longer. We're talking like 10 plus hours. A great pick if you really like heavy leather. If you want something super masculine that's been sweetened up a bit for wearability's sake, you should look into it. Actually, this is one of my favorite fragrances from Francesca. Luxe Calme Volupte. Green, aromatic, earthy, lavender, has a bit of a carrot-like raw quality to it, and I get some bitter greens here as well, probably parsley, but not really sure. Regardless, it's undoubtedly sweet and has also some floral aspects to it. Within 2 hours, most of the green complexity is gone, and I'm left with a noticeably weaker vanilla, some sugary ethyl maltol, and ambery spiciness. Cedar amber, amber max, something to that end. And if you really pay attention, you could also get some milky powderiness there as well. At 7 hours I get a faint, sweet, ambery skin scent. To me it seems like a more feminine fragrance, but I can't really recommend it, mostly due to the longevity. Maybe it was a fluke, but it didn't really pique my interest enough to go for another wearing of it. Sex and the Sea. Milky, dill, cumin, super waxy, almost sickly in my opinion, has an undeniable salty vibe to it as well. And in like 5 minutes it sweetens up a bit, becomes more animalic and a bit more sour as well. After 2 hours I get a more waxy ambergris, but at around that point it was really hard for me to do the test because I really hate this scent. Regardless, at the 7-hour mark I'm left with ambery skin scent, and on the next day I get basically just clean musks. Galaxolide, ambratolide, something to that extent. This is definitely a rather unique fragrance, with some dirtiness that's really hard to immediately explain. If you want a marine scent that instead of being fresh would be rather dirty, this one would be for you, I guess. Sex and the Sea Neroli. To me this is largely the same scent as the previous one, except with a good dose of neroli at the beginning, and there's also a tomato-like scent there, which to me is a telltale sign that Francesca has used quite a bit of petitgrain there as well. In around 15 minutes it becomes essentially a less intense version of Sex and the Sea. Waxy marine vanilla, which to me again smells quite sickly and almost nauseating. In 3 hours on me it becomes a rather weak skin scent, citrusy, sickly, largely the same as the previous one. In 7 hours I get a barely noticeable amber, which turns into basically nothing the next morning. This fragrance could be a good pick for you if you really like Sex and the Sea, but want it to be a lot less intense and for it to have more green citruses in it. Either way, in my mind it's more feminine rather than masculine, and I can't really recommend it. Francesca Bianchi's Sticky Fingers features heavy patchouli with a good dose of phenolic florals. Very much Francesca-like. Has quite literally a sticky, syrupy, rich feel to it. It's earthy, pungent and slightly bitter. In 2 hours on me it becomes noticeably weaker. I would actually say that it becomes almost a skin scent. Also it turns into a more powdery, hay-like, patchouli vanilla mix. And after 5 hours I can confidently say that this has become a weak vanillic skin scent. Sticky Fingers is my first love from Francesca's perfumes. But the longevity is simply not there. So if you really like sweet patchouli, you should go for it. But otherwise, you should probably pass. Tyger Tyger. Grape syrup is what I get from this scent in the first seconds, but rather quickly it turns into a feminine, animalic, still syrupy shampoo vibe with, again, vanillic, rich patchouli. In around 5 minutes I get a bit of a honey vibe and it turns a bit more masculine. After an hour it becomes noticeably less intense, and at around the 5-hour mark I get a dark, vanillic, leathery skin scent. And the next day I get a light, mossy smell with a faint sweetness going on there. This is undeniably feminine, but also loud and head-turning. If you're going out for an event and want to have all the attention turned to you for a few hours, this scent will do exactly that. Just keep in mind that it doesn't last for too long overall. Francesca Bianchi, Under My Skin. Waxy tobacco, cloves, and cinnamon. It's really heavy and tobacco-y. In a way it reminds me of a higher quality tobacco vanille. Definitely has a gingerbread vibe going for it. Within the first 5 minutes it turns less waxy and more spicy, maybe a bit boozy. After 2 hours I get a dry, sweet tobacco with the characteristic waxiness going on. Projects on me for around 5 to 6 hours, after which it turns into a skin scent, but around the 14-hour mark it still had a fairly noticeable ambery skin scent with some honey aspects to it. Actually, on the day that I was testing it, I got 2 unsolicited compliments from women around me. So it has easily become my most complimented fragrance from Francesca. Take it with a grain of salt though, too small of a sample size, etc, etc. If you like Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille or Serge Lutens Chergui, this one you will probably like as well. It's a good performer and overall one of the more accessible scents from Francesca. And now a bonus fragrance, Hedonik Divine Perversion. Made by Francesca for a leather brand, Hedonik, it's quite a bit of a deviation from her other work, but it's still sweet, spicy, milky and candy-like. Has a real heavy caramel vibe to it with some leathery aspects as well. In 20 minutes I just get toffee here, and it seems to be fairly linear as well. At the 11-hour mark I again get only toffee. Obviously a lot less projecting, but still. It's definitely an interesting and high quality scent, but it's a bit too simple for my taste. However, if you really like the smell of toffee and have the money, you should go for it. Again, more feminine rather than masculine, but as a guy you could easily pull it off as well. So are these fragrances worth it? The answer is, as always, it depends. Are you someone who's comfortable spending 100 euros on a fragrance? What about 200? 300? If you're like me and already have a collection of fragrances that you'll never use up in your lifetime, these could be a good addition to the collection, actually. They're high quality, they're unique, and you're already used to spending ungodly amounts of money on smelly water. On the other hand, if you want a daily driver and don't have that much expendable money, these ones probably won't be for you. By the way, if you like the idea of the Black Knight or the Lover's Tale, you should check out this video where I talk about stinky fragrances, like Histoire de Parfums 1740.